If you're just joining us, welcome and good morning. This is your host, Keely Austin. It looks like as of right now, we have 46 participants. Make sure that you reach out to your team. We do not want any ICMs left behind. Today, I have the privilege of bringing out Daine Clark as our trainer, and I was in Salt Lake City last week and had the privilege of finally meeting Daine in person and his beautiful wife. I had such an amazing time at the Salt Lake City regionals, and we've still got a few regionals coming up. So which regionals are you going to, and are you bringing guests? Daine Clark, before Renatus, he was working two jobs. He was working for Apple. He was actually in the back and kind of shy. He was also a roofer, and with fair skin and red hair, being in the sun a lot was not really his cup of tea. His dad was a roofer, and that's kind of how Daine fell into being a roofer. He was barely making ends meet and started looking for other income opportunities. After finding Renatus, he plugged into the systems, listened to his mentor. He applied Velocity Banking to pay down debt and used it as leverage for a down payment for a duplex. He lived in one side and rented out the other. Fast forward to today, Daine has raised over $6 million from investors to lend on various real estate transactions, and his secret to that is consistency and frequency. He's grown his team. He's now recognized as a key leader by our CEO, Bob Snyder. He is a part of the President's Advisory Council in training, a PIT team member. We're very fortunate to have him as our trainer today, and I'm excited to hear what you have to share. Good morning, Daine.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much. And also, I want to say it was awesome to finally meet you in person as well at the regional. And congratulations, everybody who made it out to that regional. It was an awesome turnout. I've got a book of notes of things that I know I took as well. There was a lot of really good ideas thrown out. And Keely, do you actually know, Michael asked me to ask everybody to make sure that they took the survey for the regionals. Do you happen to know how to access that by chance?
I should, but I don't.
Okay, I do not. So in fact, let me check my text messages one last time before I put that to bed, because I'm actually not even sure how. Okay, cool. Michael has not texted me back, but.
Okay, I'm wondering if it's in the packet that we received.
Yeah, maybe it is. But anyway, if anybody knows how to access the survey, come off of mute and help us find out. In fact, somebody just, okay, here we go.
So I just put it
thank
in
you, Eli.
the comment section. Yeah, we got it on the 41411 text, so there it is.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Eli, you saved the day, brother. Thank you. So yeah, everybody, if you went to the Utah Regionals and you have not given them a feedback survey, then please do. It is anonymous. If you loved it, if you hated it, all the above, they want to know so that next year your voice is heard and they can make it better. And so please do take just a couple of minutes and do that yourselves. In fact, I'm going to do that right after this call myself. But yeah, thank you all for those who give the feedback, and congratulations for those, again, who made it. We had oh my gosh, Woody's offer there at the end was, that was super cool. And in fact, I overheard Bob talking that there were so many people that went after the Woody thing that are going up to his, the new property he just finished building up in Bear Lake, that he's going to have to make it a 2-day thing because there are so many people coming that they won't all fit. And they didn't want to turn people away. So super, super cool. All right, so without further ado, let me go ahead and let's jump over here on the chat. And you guys know me, I love being accountable, so I'm actually going to start counting myself how many one-on-ones I did in the last 7 days. So if for you guys as well, chime in the chat or come off of mute if you're on the phone. And I would love to hear how many people that you had at a meeting or in a follow-up, in a one-on-one. And again, like some people, I met with them multiple times, so I count that twice. If I had 2 people either in a meeting and a follow-up, or in a meeting and a one-on-one and a house tour or whatever, I count those multiple times. So anyway, go ahead and start doing that. I'm going to count really fast. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, I had 6. Holy cow, Corey, you had 22. That is awesome. Congratulations. Let's see, so I had 6. I'm going to report that. Oh, whoops, for some reason I sent it privately to Eloy. All right, 6. And okay, let's go down the list here. So let's see. Keely had 9 guests in the room on Thursday and 1 at the follow-up. Awesome, congratulations. Corey had 22. That is crazy. Corey, I'd love to know, were those live? Were those webinars? Were they, so I'm sure everybody would love to know how you did that. One awesome thing about collaboration. Corey, do I have you off of mute? Oh, just kidding, that was Bill. Good morning, Bill. Esther had 2, congratulations. Sandra had 3. YK Salome had 2. I hope I pronounced your name right. Joshua had 4. Great job. Rhonda had 2. 5 for the meeting tonight. Committed. Yes, I love to hear it. Corey, let's see. Owners. If I can get them. Owners, if I can get them to close. Webinar. Oh, cool. Webinar, Zoom calls, face-to-face. Love it. Absolutely love it. Cool. So again, if anybody is on the phone and is not able to chat in, then you could just hit *6, come off of mute, and report how many you had. And cool. Go ahead and interrupt me, but I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we're going to get started here. So start. Screen share, 3, 2, 1, go. Perfect. All right, and chime over to here. And my iPad updated, so it's kind of interesting. Now we get black. So let me start a new one here. Okay, cool. So the thing that's been weighing on my mind lately is it was actually something that somebody introduced to me about 2 years ago almost. I want to say probably in the 19, 20 months ago range. And then I'd like to follow up with just a couple of other ideas. I know people asked, what it was that I've been building up to in the regional training. So if we have some extra time, I'll touch on some of those things. But here's what's been kind of weighing on my mind lately. And somebody introduced this concept to me. Let's call it 20 months ago. And he asked me this question. And he said, what is the one thing, so the number 1, what is the number 1 thing that I can do and finish, so that I can accomplish that, I should say, today to get just a little bit better? And he focused on essentially saying, like, what is my 1% thing? And at the time, it didn't really sink in. I remember him telling me that, like, oh yeah, that sounds so cliche, the first time he told it to me. But then we really got into it, and it took me a couple of months, maybe even that first year of really understanding what he's talking about. And so over the last 2 years, I've had this kind of in the back of my mind, if you will, of how can I get 1% better every single time, or every day? How can I get 1% better? And so a couple of things that I started doing was literally recording, one way or another, whether I literally would record the phone call, or I would take notes during the meeting that I had with somebody, or even literally, like I've sat down and on my iPad, if I share my screen here and I do this and hold this down, is it going to let me? Nope, it's probably going to stop my screen share. But right here, we're in this thing where it's sharing my screen to Zoom. There's actually a way that you can click camera roll. And so you can click that and it shares it records your screen and it records your voice as you're talking. And so actually when I would sit down with somebody to just talk to them and maybe it was a pitch to close, raise money for a real estate deal. Maybe it was a pitch to say, hey, like let's get you started with Renatus to help equip you to become a much better real estate investor and a much more cutting edge, if you will, compared to the competition in real estate investing. And so I'd record myself. Now this was probably one of the hardest things to start, I should say, because now it's just like literally everyday life. Like I'll record everything that I do just for training purposes. But the first time that I ever recorded myself was so hard. And I'll be honest, when this concept was introduced to me to be recording myself so I could listen back to it and almost rate myself, your number one critic or your number one, how do I say this? Your number one self-improvement critic, guess what, is going to be you. It's crazy. Like literally, like even when I started doing like presentations and stuff like that, I would ask a bunch of people to say, hey, will you like come and just sit in the meeting and give me feedback afterwards? Like for example, Eloy has given me awesome feedback in the past. But you know what? When I actually recorded my own presentation and then I would listen back to it, or if I had it videoed and I would watch it back, I always improved so much more, just because again, I am going to be my best cheerleader, but also my worst critic. And if I can see myself or hear myself, then I can always see like, ooh, man, I could do it like this, or because again, and I'm just going to pick on Eloy here for a little bit, but when Eloy, for example, gives me any feedback, I welcome it, I love it, and it's absolutely amazing. But I didn't see what he saw because I was looking at, I was doing my presentation from different eyes, right? I can only see it from my eyes. But when I get to see myself or hear myself, I get to see Eloy's perspective, essentially. And so I started recording my phone calls. I started recording my presentations. I started taking notes on all my different presentations and asking myself. So for example, like if I go over here, and you guys have probably seen this, or I may or may not have shown this before, but for example, like if I go to this one-on-one that I did, literally like here are all the notes as I'm talking and pitching this one-on-one and saying, hey, this is why you need Renatus, right? And so I can go back and say, oh yeah, like she bought, or he purchased his Extreme Plus combo, or Taylor, let's see which one this is here. No, that was something else. Oh, so here's where I raised money on a deal, and he gave me $100,000. Here's I'm not sure. Well, looks like I sat down with my mom. I can't remember. Oh, here's where I was raising money again on a deal, and I actually didn't. She would have given it to me, but I didn't close this person, but I still have that recording. So anyway, let me come back. Oh, now I'm gonna have to find it. Is it this one? Here we are. I better name that, huh? So today is October 16th. mastermind. Okay, so recording. And the crazy thing about that, when I started recording, I started improving so much faster. It was crazy, the growth. Like if you want to put your growth and you want to grow your pocketbook faster than you ever have before, or even get that first success, like maybe you're still looking for that very first success story, start recording yourself. Now, I do have to admit that when this topic was introduced to me, it took me several months to do my first one, to record my first one. I ended up just having a bunch of failures and, you know, a couple of wins and things like that. And I never recorded any of them just because it sounded like the dumbest idea. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to record myself and then sit back and listen to myself. Like, sounded like the stupidest thing in the world. But when I finally did, and I listened back to myself, I was like, oh my gosh, like I could do that better. I could do this better. Like I can see exactly why this person said no, or I can see exactly why, like my close ratio for the entire room was this low, or I can see why this person said yes. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I listened to that person really, really well, and I can tell that they felt like I cared about them. And so if I were to take away one of the things that really attributed to getting me to where I am now, it's because I did the first one, which is, again, it's always the hardest. I recorded that first time ever, and I actually hit play. Oh, actually, you know what? If I keep on this topic of being brutally honest, I actually recorded some of those first ones and I never listened back. Because again, it just sounded like the dumbest thing. I didn't want to listen to myself. I didn't like the way I sounded, you know, whatever. So again, I even recorded a few of them, and then months later finally did another recording, and then I actually started listening. And you know what's crazy is now when I record myself, I can't wait to sit back, and it sounds like the funniest thing to say. I can't wait to listen to myself. But for the purpose of self-improvement, because again, I am going to see myself with different eyes than somebody like maybe like an Eloy. When I say, hey Eloy, come and sit in my presentation, give me a bunch of feedback. You know, I still openly accept all that stuff, and it is valuable. But it becomes more valuable if I record and listen to myself. So for you guys, if I could give you one thing, you know, figure out ways to record yourself in the midst of, you know, asking. I downloaded an app called, let's see, on the iPhone. Oh my gosh. On the iPhone, it is called, I think it's called One Call. Let's see. Where did I put it? I just got a new phone, so all my apps are like moved. Tape a Call, there it is. So for iPhone users, I would imagine this is probably an Android thing as well. In fact, I bet Android, just because of how open that platform is, I bet you could even just like hit a button and record the calls. I know Google Voice records calls, but iPhone, I use the app Tape a Call, and you have to go in and you like tape a call first, and then you chime in and add the other person. And so literally, like I would record those phone calls, and I have recorded phone calls when I was calling people and trying to invite them down to meetings, and I have people that ended up paying $20,000, and I recorded that first call. And I have some people who never made it to meetings. I have some people who came down and still said no. but boy, was that useful in helping myself improve. And so, and same things, like I would tape my presentations, you know, the phone calls, and like I showed you here, like you know, nowadays I take notes on every single call, and sometimes we'll hit the record button on the iPad. I've recorded some conversations where I sat down with somebody and raised, you know, $700,000 from them, and they said yes at the end of that, and I was like, oh my gosh. So if I were to give you guys some advice on getting 1% better, record yourself. Okay. Now, in fact, let me jump over here really fast and just see if I have any questions. Confirmed. Scroll back up, please, for a moment. Jeremy, what exactly are you asking for? Oh, are you asking for the link? You can actually access the chat yourself, Jeremy, if that's what you're looking for. Utah, Daniela, what program are you using to record, present to people? Daniela, if I didn't answer that already, let me know, but I'm going to really quickly, I'm going to show you. So, oh, looks like she just said, oh, just kidding. So I am just using this app called OneNote. It's right here at the bottom. It's a Microsoft program. It's free, or maybe I pay. I don't know. It could come with my Office 365 subscription or not. I don't know. But I remember when I first got it, it was free, and it never asked me for any money. But so I'm using OneNote to draw all of this stuff, and I love it because you can have so many different, you know, colors and things like that, and you can name them all and save them and all that kinds of stuff. But then if I want to record me doing this, then I'm going to swipe down, or I mean, depends on what type of iPad you have. Actually, I think all iPads are the same now, as long as you're on the latest software. But if you swipe down from the very top right of the corner, and then you hold down that little blinking record button, right now it's using this to see my screen for the Zoom call. But if you hold down that record button, then you can click camera roll, and then you can click the button that says microphone. And so you can record voice and whatever you're seeing on the screen. And so that's what I use if I want to record me drawing and my voice, to do stuff like that. And it's worked out very nicely. So there's that. Daniela. Jeremy, is this all Zoom? What is the note-taking capture device you're using? OneNote, so we already said that. What is the recording app you use? So if I'm just recording the phone call, it's the tape-a-call one. Melissa, do you ever share the recording with the person you presented to after the presentation? I have, let's see, let me see if I ever have. You know what, I did one time, because when I was raising money from some people, and last minute her husband couldn't come. And so I said, oh, you know what, how about I just record this conversation with you and I, and then I can just upload it to like YouTube or something like that, and I can just share it with you, and you can share it with your husband. But I told her that, but I never ended up sending it, because I was like, you know what, I'd rather just meet her husband live. And so I just ended up rescheduling another appointment, but yeah. Okay, cool, thanks, Daniela. Okay, so a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. Oh, you know what? Buy-in. If you commit to doing this and figuring out ways to either, and even if, I mean, yeah, taking notes on the call or taking notes, you know, afterwards is great. The recording is obviously better because it's better for feedback stuff, but literally, you'll find that if you do this sooner than later, hence do what I say, not what I did. If you do this sooner than later, mark my words, like watch what happens to your life. Watch what happens to you as a person as you develop. Notice how quickly your pocketbook begins to grow. because of this self-improvement. And notice how well you begin just communicating with people in general. And believe me, for some of us, I know this is like the hardest thing to even fathom. So it's not going to happen sooner than later for some of us, and that's okay. But you'll hear me say this a few more times, because right now I might just be warming you up to this. And, you know, in several months from now, you'll hear me maybe say this again if the topic comes up. And you'll be like, oh, yeah, I remember you said this like 6 months ago. And then, you know what, I better do this time. Right? And that's totally okay if that, you know, we're all on this path of development, things like that. But mark my words, notice how quickly you to start developing as a person, that people just want to be around, that people want to listen to. Because whenever you open your mouth, something valuable comes out, because you've learned what to say and how to say it, and how to connect with people. So anyway, I'm gonna stop harping on that. Let's move on really fast. So I want to talk about a couple of things that I say to people, and I'm taking this directly from my regionals training, as a bunch of people have asked me to do, to make sure that I still share some of those things. And if you were there, instead of having 30 minutes, they shaved it down to 20 minutes, which, you know, it was okay. We had a very tight schedule, but I had to rush right at the end, and a lot of the good juicy stuff was right there at the end. But I talked about how, you know, basically the 4 boxes that a lot of us have already heard, you know, different investors, things like that. But I want to give you guys my closing statements, that every single time, like I literally used this 2 times yesterday and put 2 combo orders in the system, full cash combos with people that are very qualified. And so the thing that I say is, after I give them basically, and I call it the roadmap. So step 1 is, well, I should say ground zero is create the intrigue. Step 2 is you sit down and have a roadmap with them. And again, I don't care if this is to bring in a Renata student, or if this is to raise money for a deal, or if this is to buy a property from an owner that is you know, in some kind of distress. You know, whatever it is, you know, you create the intrigue and get them to sit down, and you say, cool, let's sit down and let's kind of roadmap, you know, how this can work for you and myself, and how it can benefit both of us. Okay. So I always call that the roadmap convo is what I call it. And so you'll notice that in my calendar, as I put these things, like I have a bunch of roadmap. So yesterday I had 3. Oh, I put 3 orders in yesterday. So I had 3 roadmap conversations yesterday, 1 in the morning and 2 in the evening. And I call all those roadmap conversations. And yesterday I ended up going 3 for 3 orders, and 3 very qualified prospects. So roadmap conversation. And then after I show them the roadmap, after I show them like, hey, here's how we can make some money together. So after I show them that, then here's the things that I say. So I'm going to do little a. So little a, the first thing I say is this, and I'm going to write it out exactly for you guys. In fact, here, I might be faster if I type it instead of try to write this out. It might take me a second. But I say, and how do I make this really big? Let's do like 24. All right. So I say this. I say, so let me ask you something. Or so let me ask you a question. And I do it just like that. Let's see. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? And if you've ever heard me say this before, you do it in that exact tonality, right? So let me say it again. So I give them the roadmap and say, all right, so here's how, you know, this, and here's what most people do, and here's how here's how, you know, I saw somebody make money, and here's a story of somebody who made money doing this, and here's how it can work for you. Okay, and so you get all done with the roadmap conversation. You say, so let me ask you something. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? Or you say, does this idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? And I do it just like that. So you go up on sense and you go up on like. All right. So let me ask you a question, or let me ask you something. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? Okay. And I say it just like that. And believe me, the first time you say this, it's going to be weird, but there's actually like some science behind the tonality of how it comes across and how it is heard in other people's minds, or how it is received, essentially. And literally, it's crazy. It was so funny because Nicole Call was in my presentation at regionals, and I said that. I said this very phrase that actually I said what I'm about to tell you, actually. But it's true for me. But I have literally never had any person ever tell me no to that question. I cannot think of one time that I asked that question and somebody said, no, does not sound like a good idea. Or no, does not make sense to me. Right? I've never had that when I ask it that way. You know, so let me ask you something, or let me ask you a question. So does this idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? Okay. And so I say that just to get them to be like, yeah, actually, yeah, the idea makes sense, you know. But I know I should probably follow this up and say that yes, I have had people who never ended up buying after saying yes to this question still, but I've never had anybody say no to this particular question. Yeah. So anyway, so I give them the roadmap combo and I show them or ask them that question, and then I go to I basically show them and say, all right, well, let's go back to pencil here. So I say, okay, well, let me show you what this looks like. So you just continue the roadmap. And now instead of just talking like theory, I convert this roadmap to saying, all right, so here's how we get started. And I give them steps. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Okay, so if I show you some conversations that I had recently, let's do this actually. So here we go. At the very end, I said, step 1, create your account. Step 2, here's a bunch of connections for lines. Step 3, unlock education. Step 4, goal setting. So if it's for education, I do that. Step 1. And then I showed him the, what do you call that? There's a document in Helios that gives you all these different options. And so based on what what I showed him, he said, oh, let's do this one. And so he told me, oh, I'm going to go get some lines because he's got, decent credit. So step 1, create account. Step 2, and as I'm going through this, I'm actually we're actually having a conversation. Step 1, let's do this, create an account. This takes like 5 minutes, so we can do this today. Step 2 is going to be, let's pick a funding strategy. And so before I write anything down here, this is when I go to Helios, and here, let's see if Helios is going to be my friend today. And oh, cool, looks like it's going pretty quick. So log in, and I go to marketing, and I go to presentations, and then up here in the search, I say disclosures. So let's see, let's do the most, they're both about the same. Current information and disclosure packet, black and white or color. Now let's do the color one. So you want to download this and give them this. Actually, you know what? If they don't know anything about marketing, don't give them this. But, here we go. And then you can show them, hey, here's how most people fund their education. Cash or credit, read this really fast. Funding assessment, let's read this really fast. Retirement funds, let's read this really fast. HELOC, private funding, life insurance, UGA, let's read these things really fast. And so we list them out. And then he basically chose. He said, you know what? I think I can do this one. The cash credit. I've got decent credit. I actually work for the bank, so I'll just go get some lines. And so I've got, connections here, connections there. And so I'll just go get some lines. And so that's what he chose to do. So step one, create account. Step two, fund. Basically, whatever funding strategy we go for. And for him, I just wrote in lines because that's what he chose. And then step three is unlock education. And step four is set goals, goal setting. So I start doing this, okay? So create funding strategy, unlock education, goal setting, and then we just go for it. We start putting in his order. So we start creating his account that night. So this is how I put in 3 accounts yesterday, and had got them to sign for it and everything, and then sent them on their way to go find their own funding. Okay. So, and it's the same thing, even like when I'm pitching a real estate deal. So let me actually go to a real estate deal here really fast. Here we go. So, here's the roadmap. Here's, why we're doing this. Here's, a couple different things of how it works and what we do if it doesn't go perfect. Okay. And so then I say, all right, here's the steps. So Daine goes to work. I pull this from Chris Albin. I pull this from Jay Massey, and this is basically just title and escrow. Okay, so I say step 1, present the deal. Step 2, you tell me if you like it. Step 3, I have an attorney get involved and we draft the documents. Step 4, we all review the documents and sign them. Step 5, we wire to an escrow company. Okay, so this is the roadmap essentially here's the roadmap and here's the steps to get started. So it's literally the same. I do my real estate business and I do my education sales. I mean, it's the same. Give them a roadmap of how to do business together and then give them steps on how to get started in the roadmap. Okay. So it doesn't matter either way. Another question that I love to ask as well, and sometimes I'll fit this in, and I love asking this question as well right after I tell like a story. So if I sit down and tell a story, and it's super cool, like, hey, yeah, let me tell you about, either whether it's my story or whether it's a story of another student. I mean, it doesn't matter. Something where somebody went from rags to riches type of story, zero to hero type of story where they did it and made money. Then I ask them this question, and I say, so let me ask you a question, or let me ask you a really dumb question. Are you ready? And here, I'll type this out for you guys. So let's see if it keeps it big. Nope, I'm gonna have to change the size. Let's go make it a little bit bigger this time. So like 36. So I say, so let me ask you a stupid question. Are you ready? And then I say, do you want this? That's literally it. And I've had a couple of people, flounder and whatever. But again, I usually do it right when I've told like a really inspiring story. And so we've done the roadmap. I tell a story of like a real estate deal. And then I say, all right, so let me ask you a stupid question. Are you ready? And they're like, yeah, what is that? I say, are you sure you're ready? Yeah. I say, so, and then I'll start pointing at the roadmap. So do you want to do this? And I always like nod my head just like a little bit. I nod my head yes as I'm saying this. So let me ask you a stupid question. Are you ready? Yeah. Tell me what you got, Daine. And I say, so do you want to do this? As I'm like nodding my head. And I say it that way. And again, like I've had some people say no, because that's like a real like closing question where it's like, all right, let's do this. And they're like committing. And sometimes, actually more often than not, I'll even put both of these questions in the same meeting. I'll do this one first. so let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea? I'll do that one first, and then I'll do this other one second. Do you want this? And so when I say, do you want this? I'm referring to, and sometimes I'll make that question a little bit longer by saying, so do you want to keep on doing what, do you want to go back to normal life the way it's always been, or do you want to do this? I'll do it that way. In fact, I said that one every time yesterday, so I'm actually going to change this. So do you want to go back to normal life the way it's always been, or do you want to do this? Oops. Now we could put an emoji in there. Do you want to do this? And again, nodding on this, right? Maybe I'd probably start when I say want. Do you want to do this? And I'm kind of like referencing, this roadmap conversation. And so that's the one that I whenever I say that, like always we start putting in the order. Because if they say yes to that question, dude, they are freaking ready. Like, whip out your iPad, phone, tablet, computer, I don't care. Any mobile device that's connected to the internet, and pull up your order form and put their order in, like right now. Because if they say yes to that question, don't wait. Do it now. And then after I do that, then, the same thing, I'll probably do the steps, go back to draw. I'll probably do the steps and then give them homework and say, all right, create the account and then give them the homework, say, all right, let's go figure this out. And oftentimes, I shouldn't say oftentimes, but every once in a while, I literally like collect their credit card right then and there. And sometimes like last night, for example, I kind of tried on all three of them, just very lightly, but I knew that some of them, because just based on what they had said, like they're like, okay, cool, like, yeah, I'm gonna have to get mine. Like I don't have that kind of money. I don't have any money. Okay, but yeah, sometimes I'm able to pull a little bit of moolah and put some credit card stuff in the system to get them going. So yeah, so let's see, what time is it? Oh, we're about top of the hour. Let me go back and let's do Q&A a little bit, because I'm sure there's a few questions here. If you've got questions about what we're talking about here, then feel free to chime in, come off of mute, chime into the chat box, whatever it is. So Richard Clayton, Daine, what is a studio question? Oh, did I say studio? Thank you. Studio question. All right, cool. Does anybody have any questions about what I'm talking about here, or even what we've talked about all day? Q&A. Let's just take like 5 minutes and Q&A.
Daine, Janine Best.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I thought you did a great presentation at the regionals. I have a question because I had 6 people at Mark Puller's, and one of the girls has been coming to 3 events before, and then she went to Mark.
Oh my goodness.
She was so excited. She couldn't come Monday to the follow-up, and then her daughter was sick on Thursday. So I contacted her again, and now she says, I bought Mark's book, and I'm just reading Mark's book, and I think that's all I need.
Oh, geez.
So now I don't know where to go with this. She's kind of going into the witness protection program.
Yeah, so if they start ghosting you, but they were really nice about it, that means they still want it. I can tell you that right now, but they're just afraid of something, usually money. So I can tell you right now, like because she came to all those events, dude, she wants this. Like, not many people come to that many events and don't fall in love. But there's this law called the law of diminishing intent, that if they sit over a period of time, then that excitement goes way, way down. And so where she's been to 3 events, like, she was riding the high where she's excited and I mean, it's making sense. And then she goes home. And I remember that I did this myself. When I came down to events and was looking into Renatus back 4 years ago, I would go home and be like, oh, you know what, this is dumb. Like, I don't think I can actually do this. There's no way I can make money doing that. Just tons of negative self-talk. So here's what I would recommend. And it's the only way that I've ever been able to pull somebody out of that, is call her up and tell her a story. Now, this has to be live, because you are going to have to feed some emotion into her. You're going to have to instill some, inspiration. So you call her up and say, oh my gosh, I got to tell you this story of this student that just started, X amount of time ago, whatever. And this just happened to them. And you can literally use anybody's testimonial, anybody's story that you think might relate to her. I don't care. Use my story, but use anybody's story and say, "Oh my gosh, I gotta." Let's see who else. We have somebody else off of mute. Rhonda, give me 1 second. Oh, okay. So anyway, so tell her a story like that's inspiring, and the question you'll ask her afterwards, like, hey, are you still interested in getting into real estate? And I just say that, like, that's it. Are you still interested? And then shut up. Don't say anything after that. Even if it takes like 30 seconds for her to respond, let her think and respond. And that's the only way I've ever been able to resurrect somebody who went cold like that, where there's lots of excitement. But in the future, make sure you learn from this and remember that when she's excited like that, like, dude, get that order in. If she's been to 3 events, that order, like, she was ready. So learn from this. And just remember that if that ever happens again, somebody makes it to 3 events, dude, order in. I usually put the order in on the 2nd exposure.
Oh, cool.
So cool.
Okay, thank you.
Rhonda, what is a roadmap conversation? I basically just name it, but it's basically a follow-up. I just don't like to call it a follow-up for the purpose of the person who is showing up, because it sounds like a salesy event. Roadmap, I have found, people are like, yeah, like, I would love to see a roadmap to my success. And so I always call a follow-up a roadmap conversation. So cool. Any other questions before we wrap up for the day? Let's see. Got time for one more. You know who you are.
Hi, Daine.
Hey, how's it going?
Kind of the same scenario. I had a friend over at the tax and legal, and I noticed he still wants it, but he's putting excuses on the money. But I have him come over to a wholesale deal that I got on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So he's gonna come and take a look at it, but I don't know how to approach it.
Yeah. All right. So you're going to, are you going to meet with him one-on-one?
Well, he is pretty much interested in doing more investing. He is an investor already. He has several properties, but he's still like, I notice he's hungry for more.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to
pay
$10,000. You know,
yeah, most people don't. I mean,
yes.
If I were to ask everybody here to raise their hand or whatever, chime in and say, hey, did you want to pay $20,000? Nobody's going to be like, yeah, I actually was so excited to give them my credit. Nobody.
I was like that, so that's kind of like my obstacle too. Yeah.
Yeah. So and if you've ever seen or heard of the feel, felt, found, concept of if they ever tell me like, yeah, dude, I don't want to pay 20 grand, be like, good, that's normal. Like, I didn't want to pay 20 grand. I have never met a single person who wanted to pay 20 grand. But you know what? What most people find is that as they start learning and they see the value that's really here for them, that they're like, oh my gosh, I need this. And people have found that when they jump in and they start actually applying both the knowledge and connecting with the relationships, they really start expanding their pocketbook, and it becomes so worth it. And you can even, I mean, all this is true. Like I just say truth, and people end up appreciating it. So I validate the fact, like, yeah, 20 grand's a lot of money. Like most people, in fact, I've never met a single one that wanted to do it, but most people that join, and I bet, same thing. We could ask every single person that's on this line right now and be like, hey, are you glad you did spend 20 grand, right? That's always how it works. You don't want to do it on the front end, but when you do, you will be glad you did. Okay. And so you can say stuff like that and use those couple of questions. Be like, so let me ask you a question. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea of everything we're doing here and how people are making money and how people are coming in as nobodies and becoming success, or people who are coming in like a Mike Kessler that did 90 some odd transactions before they joined Renatus, and they're like, yeah, man, I wish I would have known this 10 years ago.
So
or I wish I would have joined this 10 years ago.
Okay.
So absolutely. Tell stories, ask them questions like that. Does the idea make sense to you? Do you like the idea of, do you like the idea of collaborating with other people, bouncing ideas off of each other, sharing knowledge, resources, deals, money? I mean, if you're already investing, then this can help you. So use questions like that. Tell stories, validate. It's a lot of money. But talk about how most people would tell you, oh my gosh, I am so glad I did. So great job, and good job on scheduling the meeting as well. So let's see, David, I've got you off of mute as well. We're about to wrap up, but do you have a quick question?
Yes, this is Gilda, actually.
Oh, Gilda, okay.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know you mentioned that you put in 3 orders yesterday, so I gathered you didn't pay for those orders yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Now,
yep, go ahead.
Okay, how long do you have to wait, or maybe like, the corporate would actually cancel the order, like say if they don't come up with the money? So is there like a time frame that they will actually cancel it, if they don't receive the money?
Corporate, if nobody ever acts on that account, or in other words, if nobody ever funds the accounts that you create, corporate will just delete them in like 30 days. Okay. Automatically.
So, okay, so 30 days is the magic number. Yeah. Okay.
And that is actually, again, if I just speak truth, people appreciate it. So I've actually used that very phrase to get somebody to still sign. So there was a couple of times where I've had some people give me some pushback. We're like, I don't want to sign this. I don't want to create, account. Like, no. I say, oh, no. Like, we're not like deciding today. This is just a process of you making, you helping you to make your decision. And I say, when we create this account, if it never gets funded, corporate will just delete it in 30 days. So no, this is not you like signing your life away. This is just the first step the first next step in your progression of making your decision. And so I've gotten people be like, oh yeah, okay, cool, and then they sign it, and then they ended up buying later on. And some people didn't, but they end up buying later on. And I still got that signature. And so that's how I still get the signature, is just saying, hey, this is, this is only if they give me pushback. Like if they don't give me any pushback, like yesterday, I put in the 3 orders and everyone is like, okay, yeah, yep, makes sense. Yep. And sign. And no pushback. But if they did, and I say, oh, no, this is not like you signing your life away. If we never act on this account, corporate will delete it in 30 days. As if you make your decision later on and you decide that you hate me, and I always make it personal like that. If you decide that you hate me 5 days from now and you don't want to do this, then yeah, they're just going to delete the account. And most people will not ever hate somebody. But again, it just starts beating down the beliefs of why they don't want this, and you make it personal like that, then people, anyway, it's crazy. Story for another day.
Okay.
Hey, Daine,
So that's
yeah.
actually, you do that in the second, basically, you mentioned that your roadmap is your follow-up. And so that's actually your second exposure, basically, after the
Second
intro.
exposure. Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Exactly.
All
Second
right.
exposure.
And how long
Order
do
in
you
every time.
usually do your roadmap? I mean, how long does it usually take when you do that?
It just depends on the person. I've done it in an hour. I've done it with a really talky person, 2 hours. But I usually try to block off 2 hours just in case. But I know people like Nate Lambert, they get it done in like 45 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
I usually like to spend a little more time with people, but that's just a personal preference. So
Okay.
cool. All right.
All right. Well,
Sorry, I got
thank
a
you
whole
very
bunch of
much.
people.
Thank you so much for doing this for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Cecilia, so do I always put in Extreme Plus combos? I want to say yes. There are occasions where I don't, just because like we know that they can't afford the 20,000, and so when we know what they can and can or can't afford, then I'll put in that specific order. But if I don't know what they can afford yet, because oftentimes I don't, I'll just put in the Extreme Plus combo. And then if we have to shift later on and we say, oh, we only have to do essentials, because now we know that that's all they can afford, because they've gone and figured out their funding and stuff, then I'll say, okay, cool, yeah, let's just shift and let's just put in an essentials order. And so now they'll have an Extreme Plus combo order and an essentials order, but only the essentials order was funded, and the other one will just get deleted after the 30 days. So great question. I've got one other person off of mute. I know we're over time, but let's see, 303, 5. Okay.
Yeah, when does the time start on their 7 days? Is it after they're funded?
That day, the day that they sign. So the 7 days starts the day that they sign. And so, for example, like if you have somebody that signs today and it goes for 7 days, so a week, next Wednesday, and it actually adds 10, extra 3 days for Hawaii or something like that. So it ends up being like 10 to 12 days total, and they fund it to a week or two from now. Then you'll get paid as the independent contractor marketer. You'll get paid like the very next payday, which is kind of cool. So sometimes when people put their card information in, then it automatically goes to the commission roll for you to get paid afterwards. So the 7 days starts
when do they actually get to start their classes? Not till it's funded?
Correct. When it's actually funded. So cool.
That's great.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Daine.
I'll see you all next week. Mike, go ahead real fast.
Sorry. So when you have them sign the order, but they haven't funded their education yet, the 7-day right to rescission starts then when they sign?
Yep.
Not when they fund?
Correct.
Okay. So how do we explain that to them if they're trying to look at their classes before they fund it, or they fund after, they fund and it's like the 7th day, and so they only get 1 day to look at the classes before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Most people, and knock on wood, I have literally never had anybody ask to cancel after they put their funding in. Like not one time have I had people try to cancel. Actually, I take it back. There was one, but it was just, he was kind of like a loose cannon, emotional type of thing. And it literally just took me one 20-minute conversation. And he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Yeah, let's go. Let's do this,
Right.
And so it was like a 20-minute fix, and he never asked, he just went on his way and towards his own success. So if somebody has that question though, where they're like, oh no, I want to reset my 7-day, then when they're going to fund the account, you just make a brand new order.
Okay.
And put their credit cards in on that brand new order. And I have done that 1 or 2 times, but not very often. Usually, when they make a decision, they make a decision. I'm doing this at that point. And they don't even need. And again, a lot of this is going to come back to your own belief about yourself and the product and Renatus and all that kind of stuff. But if you believe in the product so much that, I mean, nobody's ever going to ask to cancel. You know, everybody's going to stay in. Then it's honestly, it's going to happen less to you. Like in my mind, I just tell myself, like, dude, every single person, when they do this, they are super excited. They want to stay in, all that kind of stuff. And I don't even say the word not. Like I never say they're not going to cancel because the word cancel is in that phrase. I say, no, whenever people join, they're going to stay in and they're going to love it. So cool. LaShawn, quick question. I'm at work. The ICM that had 20 plus guests, what did they do for marketing? They did a bunch of online stuff, LaShawn. So webinars and things like that. Anyway, we're over time. So if we have more questions next week, we'll go over those, but I've got to jump on another call. So cool. Thanks all and have a wonderful day.